Hello, CounterSide PvP enthusiasts. It's currently the first week of a new ranked gauntlet season in Global, and Replacer King and his favorite ship, the Blue Bridge Mark II, are both unbanned. As a result, Replacer Kings are everywhere, from the top of the ranks to the bottom, and I want to help you build a team that can beat Replacer King players without auto-losing to everything else. I'll be using my team as an example, and also offer some alternative suggestions for whatever units you're missing, can't gear properly, don't want to use, or aren't able to use in a different week due to different bans. First, let's briefly go over RK's skills in order to understand how he works. Understanding his mechanics is hugely helpful in coming up with ways to bully him. His basic attack is a simple AoE melee punch. He needs his passive abilities buff to actually do his job, because without his buffs, he will run right up to targets and try to box them, leaving himself vulnerable to attacks. Buffed basic attacks are his main strength, so RK users who understand this will always use an attack speed set, preferably Brita relics with range damage potentials, but Swift relics with attack speed potentials, maze with haste option, or maze with crit damage option can also work. His passive activates whenever any of his non-mech allies die, giving him unlimited range and valid hits, letting him punch everything in front of him for 6 seconds. The duration refreshes every time another non-mech ally dies. This is why most experienced RK players will wait to deploy him until the Blue Bridge Mark II's second skill is ready. This also gives you an opportunity to set up on the field in preparation for his appearance. The soldiers it summons usually die quickly, which means he can be deployed in the backline and immediately have his full range while staying safely in the back. The second part of his passive is that whenever allied non-mech units die, they rise again as replacers. These units aren't too strong, but with the Blue Bridge's soldier reign, they can swarm your backline and actually cause some damage if you can't wipe them out quickly enough. This combination of summoned soldiers and RK's punching your ship and back line while being too far to be attacked is when games tend to die for players who did not come prepared to fight him. It's also worth noting that these summoned Replacer King soldiers also refresh the duration on his buff. His special attack is nothing special, but it is worth noting that it does reduce the attack of units he hits with it by 50%. That means if you're using any melee attackers like Awakened Shifuyu or Awakened Yuna, their damage output is going to take a big hit for a while afterwards, but they shouldn't be able to reach your back line with it. His ultimate deals decent damage and can actually reach your back line if he's at the front, but maybe more importantly, it removes any debuffs on him and gives him 15 seconds of debuff immunity. However, this doesn't work against operator debuffs, which will be important soon. His debuff blocking buff can also potentially be removed by anything that would normally remove buffs, like Rearmed Casey or Rearmed Alex's specials, Awaken Yuna's special, or the Kamizumi's first skill. So now that we've established his strengths and weaknesses, and how he works, let's get into how to exploit them and make Replacer King players cry. The absolute biggest thing you can do to improve your matchup against Replacer King players is to use the Serina Crew operator. Even at level 1, she can make a huge difference in the matchup. The reason is that by removing his buff and preventing him from getting new buffs for several seconds afterwards, he won't be able to do his map-wide punches anymore, and will run straight into your nearest unit, hopefully opening him up to attack. If you set up properly, you should be able to kill him here and have a very real chance of ending the game shortly afterwards. Leveling Serina Crew's ability is very helpful since it will keep him locked down for longer, and she is probably one of the 2 best operators currently in the game. So she is worth raising if you can spare the tickets to pull for duplicates, as long as you have a ground res or AoE res passive on her. Range res might be fine too, but think long and hard about matchups before committing to a currently non-meta passive. Also, make sure to actually level her up so that she can increase your ship's HP and defense, which will let your ship stay alive longer. In terms of when to actually activate her, I would recommend doing so when his only potential target is your front line. If he's stuck fighting a Spira, or your own Blue Bridge Mark II soldiers, you might miss your chance to gain access to him before Serina's debuff ends. Next up, Awaken Yuna is a natural enemy of Replacer King. If Serina Crew is how you disable and bring RK to your front line, a Yuna is how you keep him there. Her special is on a 20-second cooldown, removes all buffs on targets it hits, and even adds a buff block for 6 seconds. It should be noted that if Replacer King uses his ultimate after she buff blocks him, he will remove the buff block and prevent new debuffs for 15 seconds. On the flip side, if he uses his ultimate and is then hit by her special, she will remove his debuff immunity buff and buff his blocks for 6 seconds as usual. She has very good defensive stats, and as long as her bird is alive, she has very high self-healing, so she is completely viable as a solo frontliner option against Replacer King teams, at least as long as they aren't running Awakened Seoyun, Kyrian, or something else that counters her. Her passive causes 2% max HP damage per second to all enemies around her as well as herself, while her bird grants her 3% healing per second as long as it's alive. The HP burn goes around enemy shields too. According to the recent dev notes post, in the near future she'll receive a reactor upgrade that increases her burn damage, which will make her a lot stronger. You should try to build her with a cooldown reduction set bonus, using gear with defensive options like ground, ranged, and melee res. An inhibitor weapon with ground res is a must, preferably with resistance potential, but skill haste can work too. You have a bit more freedom with the other pieces, but focus primarily on defensive stats first, and haste anywhere that defensive stats aren't available. Her natural evasion is extremely high, so you don't absolutely have to use evasion accessories, but they are so preferable. Her attacks and skills won't be doing too much damage, but her HP burn passive should be very helpful for killing Replacer King and other frontliners. Another good choice is Rearmed Titan. Now, I'm a big Rearmed Titan simp and try to work him into every single rank team when he's off ban, but he does actually serve a specific use here. When used as leader, he ends up only costing 3 energy to deploy, and he's pretty tanky for what is essentially a ranger with an AoE basic attack. He's pretty good at getting rid of all the chaff that the Blue Bridge Mark II and Replacer King will summon, and as long as he's not right next to the front line, he should be able to survive without any help while dealing strong sustained damage. Because he's a striker, and can be your first deployment into almost any situation, he's gonna get you started nicely on Serina Crew's activation order, and you can take your time in setting up for RK himself, because you probably won't desperately need any support units on the field before he actually comes out. In terms of equipment, you probably want to build him for damage, and if for some reason you got rid of his unique accessory that comes from the side story case files, then he's probably not worth using for you. Spectral Bullet with anti-striker and anti-defender options are good, or you can try a Volcano set with anti-counter potentials. Attack set on his unique equipment is the best way to go, and make sure to level it up because it adds more attack speed with every new level. Yet another unit that's very helpful against her RK is Spira. Every time she loses a certain amount of her health, she'll teleport forward, up to 2 times in total. If she started somewhere near the middle of the battlefield, then by the last teleport, she'll probably be behind Replacer King himself. Once he's turned around, his punches will only be hitting her, keeping your ship and squishier units safe. Gear her in full tank gear, with a priority on anti-ground and melee resistance, and she should be able to get you a lot of value for her cost, if they have no specific counter to her. She's almost essential during Replacer King weeks if you're not running Serina Crew and or Awaken Yuna, but if you have both in your squad, using all 3 might be overkill. Those are probably the big 3 Replacer King counters, and also Rearmed Titan. But through understanding how his kit works, you should be able to come up with some other units and strategies which will help you in RK matchups. I'll play a clip of my match with one of the highest ranked RK teams this week to give you a sense for how it works, while offering up some more ideas on what you might be able to do to improve your win rate against RK teams. Rearmed Laura, particularly as leader, will slow down RK's attack speed, which will naturally slow down his damage output. And Raffaele Jury has a similarly reliable ability to get in his face and slow down his attack speed. You can even try to use her to turn him around, like Spira. Because he tries to stay far away and has low base evasion, the Lake Superior's second skill can push him to the center of the map and into range of your damage dealers, as well as potentially bringing over his supporters so that you can deal with them directly and overpower the enemy lines. You can try using backline attackers like Lily to damage and disrupt enemy backlines, or go for a more direct approach with Rearmed Elizabeth or Awakened Mina, seeing as he's almost always built with purely offensive equipment. She only just came out as of the making of this video, but I've heard from the PvP channel of the official Discord that Awakened Regina should be pretty effective against Replacer King teams, since her special removes and blocks buffs for 6 seconds, and her ultimate will greatly slow down his punching, along with her being good at dealing with enemy defenders. Personally, I've enjoyed using Rosaria this week, because she is great at clearing the junk soldiers that the Blue Bridge Mark II and Replacer King summons, and she's decent as an activator for Serina Crew. Lucercia can do most of what Rosaria does for 1 cost less, and has more utility, but her basic attack damage is pretty bad, so she can actually die from the soldiers that Rosaria wipes out with ease. I've tried both this week, and Rosaria just felt better for me, although mine is also 10 levels higher. Feel free to give both of them a try and see what works for you. Kyrian and Awakened Maria aren't necessarily on my team to counter RK, and they don't fare very well during the soldier reign, so you may want to try turning off automatic ultimates when their purple bars are nearly full, and save them for when they're facing in the correct direction, if you end up using them. Maria's special can definitely mess with RK and other frontliners pretty well, if she's able to hit them, and if her ultimate reaches the enemy back line, that's going to be hard to recover from. And I guess that's it for this video. I hope it helps you with the rest of the week, or any future weeks where Replacer Kings are on the rampage. If you have some anti-RK strategies or units that weren't covered here, feel free to share them in the comments below. I'm still planning to put out a video about the new Alternium reactor system soon, but I'm hoping I can do that after the 3rd batch of reactor upgrades are officially released, and the PvP community has a better understanding of which ones are worth the cost of 75 fusion cores, as well as the very limited Pure Possibilities crystals. Get subscribed to be notified for when that video comes out, because you'll probably have a hard time finding a better source of info than what I intend to provide. Thanks for watching!